Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, police abolitionist and socialist Seattle Mayor-elect Katie Wilson unveils her safety plan. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Washington State issued almost 700 licenses to illegal aliens to drive trucks and buses over the last 7 years. Don't take my word for it. This came from the Washington Department of Licensing. Quote, errors have been addressed, and DOL is working to make changes in our system, process, procedures, and training to prevent misissuances in the future. I don't believe you. If errors have been addressed, then why are you still making changes in your system, processes, and procedures? If the issues had been addressed, that should already be done. So, according to the Washington State Standard, the issue has drawn heavy criticism from the Trump administration and others after a semi-truck driver, Harjinder Singh, allegedly made an illegal U-turn and killed 3 people in Florida. I hate that we have to say allegedly when the whole thing's on video. Singh wrongfully received a standard commercial driver's license from Washington State. The State Department of Licensing concluded. Stop. Why do you say wrongfully? Whoops! Didn't mean to do it. Your policies are what allowed this to happen, giving licenses to illegal aliens. By the way, did you notice what word is missing in that entire paragraph? Let me read it again. The issue has drawn heavy criticism from the Trump administration and others after a semi-truck driver, Harjinder Singh, allegedly made an illegal U-turn and killed 3 people in Florida. Singh wrongfully received a standard commercial driver's license from Washington State. The State Department of Licensing concluded. You didn't mention at all that he is an illegal alien. Didn't mention that at all. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has since threatened to withhold federal highway funding from states that issue these licenses to immigrants who don't qualify. Stop. You're making them sound like they're legal immigrants who, for whatever reason, don't qualify. Like, oh, they couldn't get insurance. Or, oh, whatever, they were having a financial hardship. They shouldn't be in this country, Washington State Standard. What kind of garbage reporting is this? Who wrote this garbage anyway? Let's scroll back up to the top. I don't know who this person is. The growing attention led Washington's licensing department to discover 685 other errors of the same kind over the course of 7 years. Wait a second, 7 years? You mean right after you made Washington a sanctuary state, all of a sudden you start having these issues? You think there's only 700 of these? I guarantee there's a whole lot more. All of those licenses were active when the mistakes were found. That figure doesn't account for errors with credentials that had already lapsed. How is it California found 14,000 of these licenses issued to illegal aliens, and we only found 685. A U.S. Department of Transportation spokesperson said Washington's failure to follow federal law is a blatant breakdown in its responsibility to protect the public. By handing out standard CDLs to drivers who are never eligible, Washington sent unsafe foreign drivers into highways across America and put countless families in danger. This is exactly the kind of negligence Secretary Duffy is working to eliminate. Following the law is not optional. Washington Department of Licensing. By the way, that's how many paragraphs is that down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the first time you hear this guy wasn't in the country legally, and it's from the Trump administration statement. Washington Department of Licensing spokesperson Nathan Olson said in an email that the errors have been addressed. Yeah, sure they have. Singh and others should have received what is called a non-domiciled commercial driver's license meant for non-citizens with valid work authorization. How can they have valid work authorization if they are illegally in this country? They're not people who came here on a work visa. They are people who came here illegally. This is insane. Before the Florida crash, Singh had also wrongfully received a credential from Florida. Okay, maybe the Washington State Standard isn't as well versed in this as we are because we've been covering this for so long. But what happened is the word should be fraudulently. The feds trust the states to follow the regulations they have set for commercial driver's licenses because they're on federal highways. The Fed cannot manage this themselves. At this point, I'm saying we need to grow the federal government's Department of Transportation to do this licensing because obviously the states cannot be trusted with it because the blue states are violating federal law. Aren't they the ones who always say federal law or any law is there to keep you safe? Clearly, they don't care about that when it comes to their agenda. Now, it's not just truck drivers. It's bus drivers also. We heard rumors about this. I was at a Let's Go Washington signing event for the two initiatives, the one to keep girls sports for girls and not for boys, and the one to make sure that parents still have parental rights. And this woman came up to me who's a school bus driver in the area, and she said, Ari, I listened to your show, and what you've been talking about with the truck drivers, it's not just the truck drivers, it's also the bus drivers, some of whom drive kids. So how many bus drivers? Because here's my new question. How many King County metro drivers are illegal aliens? Any other metro system that we have around here? How many school bus drivers in our area are illegal aliens? How many school bus drivers? Earlier this year, Duffy launched a nationwide audit of the states that issued these non-domiciled licenses to immigrants. Once again, they can't say illegal aliens. We're not talking about people who came here lawfully. We're talking to people who came here unlawfully, illegally. Insane. Absolutely insane. And you've put people's lives at risk. People have already died. Minnesota was doing this. Pennsylvania was doing this. Washington was doing this. California was doing this. Illinois was doing this. Oregon was doing this. How many more? How many more? Don't forget, Florida's Attorney General is already moving to sue Washington and California at the U.S. Supreme Court, seeking a permanent ban on both states issuing CDLs to illegal aliens. We're going to see how that case transpires, but they put everybody's lives at risk with their virtue signaling stupidity. Now, they're the ones who claim they want rules and regulations to keep all of us safe. Remember the nonsense they did during COVID with OSHA? With all the safety requirements, oh, you're putting people's lives at risk by not getting the COVID shot. Apparently, you don't care about who's driving on our freeways, who's driving over 100,000-pound vehicles at speeds in excess of 60 miles an hour down freeways. We just had the accident last week where somebody was going too fast, didn't even have a CDL. How many of these drivers are out there? I refuse to believe it's only 700. It has to be many, many more. I'm going to reach out to the Washington Department of Licensing for comment. Oh, wait, they didn't get back to me with a comment, Mike. Wait a second. So they'll get back to the Washington State Standard, but they won't get back to us when we ask a question like this? Oh, you bet there's going to be a follow-up email about this. Meanwhile, other shadiness the Democrats are up to. This one from the Center Square. The Washington State Office of the Attorney General could soon have investigators rolling around the state with confidential driver's licenses and plates under a proposal offered by Democrats last week. The majority party proposed identical bills in both chambers of the legislature last week after Nick Brown requested the tools. If approved, House Bill 2096 and Senate Bill 5829 would allow the Department of Licensing to issue the Attorney General's office investigators confidential forms of investigation subject to rules set by the Department of Licensing. Several other states already have similar laws, as does Washington, but the statute does not extend to the AGO. However, I have a question. So, Nick Brown, didn't you just sue to try and get the masks off the ICE agents so you can know who they are? Don't you have people in the Washington state legislature filing laws that they want to pass this year to ban ICE agents and federal agents from wearing masks and concealing their identities? So you want your investigators to be anonymous, but you don't want federal law enforcement to be anonymous. If Democrats didn't have double standards, they would have no standards at all. The IDs have a very limited and specific use: to allow our staff to pass a cursory identification check without compromising their personal information where it is relevant to their work case, said the Attorney General's Office Deputy Communications Director, Mike Falk. Oh, Jay Inslee's old guy. Ah, excellent. According to the Center Square, state law already allows the DOL to issue confidential forms of identification to commissioned officers of local, state, and federal law enforcement for covert activities. Whoa, wait a second. We already allow them to be confidential, but now you guys are trying to take the masks off them while at the same time you're trying to make sure your investigators are anonymous? Uh-huh. They said that various industries require identification to verify age or location before purchasing something or accessing certain content. Verification is a hurdle for investigators since AGO doesn't require its personnel to risk disclosing their identities when looking into businesses that may be breaking the law. That's exactly why the ICE agents are doing it, you fools! Do you guys know you're doing this, or do you just not care? Investigators have experienced online doxing and attempts to publicize their names, said Mike Falk. Confidential IDs reduce a target's ability to widely disclose an investigator's true identity to others in the same industry and help protect state investigators from potentially dangerous targeting online. Oh, wait a minute. You mean exactly like what you guys are allowing to happen and want to have happen more to the ICE agents? Are you kidding me with this? Are you kidding me with this? This is the same guy, Nick Brown, who proposed legislation with Socialist Senator Rebecca Saldana last Friday requiring businesses to notify their employees ahead of potential ICE activity when the government requests certain records. Wait, so you want businesses to tell their employees when ICE is coming, but not when the investigators from the state is coming? By the way, if the Republicans want to troll these guys, you know what you should do? You should do another bill where they have to identify themselves when they're coming to a business to investigate them. Look, I want fraudsters caught as much, but you have to reveal the insanity. You have to reveal the hypocrisy to everybody. Just put that out there. They have to announce that they are from the Washington Attorney General's office. I am here to go undercover at your business to see if you're breaking the law. Oh, this is too good for words. Saldana and more than a dozen other Senate Democrats also proposed a bill on Monday that would prohibit law enforcement officers from wearing face coverings outside undercover operations. It would also allow anyone detained by an officer in violation of the proposal to sue that officer for damages. Okay, here's what you need to do, guys. Republicans, we love law enforcement, and this thing's never going to pass. But to reveal the Democrats' hypocrisy, you have to make it that people can sue the Attorney General's office investigators who come in anonymously, who come in undercover. That's the only way you're going to expose this nonsense. According to federal data, assaults on ICE agents increased roughly 1,150% from January 21st to 25 to November 21st, 2025, compared to the same time period under the Biden administration in 2024. Falk says the risk of misuse is extremely small. We're giving out IDs, and we don't think that people are going to misuse them if they're confidential. He says the confidential IDs aren't tied to Social Security numbers. You can't use them to board an airplane, apply for credit, or deposit a check. He said that IDs are only so AGOs, investigators, can pass a cursory identification check without revealing their identity. Hey, let's do that for illegal aliens, too, so they can vote, right? Who am I kidding? Nobody's checking ID here. So what you're saying is you need ID to fly. You need ID to apply for credit. You need ID. You need a Social Security number. Do these guys not realize they're saying the quiet part out loud on all of this? On all of this. It's so entertaining. It's so beyond crazy that they don't get it at all. Here's another report I saw just yesterday that U.S. Customs and Border Protection data shows that illegal crossings at the U.S.-Canada border, we're not even talking about the southern border, we're talking about the northern border, surged to historic highs during the Biden administration, with records broken repeatedly over 4 years. You know what the number 2 state in the country for illegal alien crossings was? It's not Phoenix, it's not Arizona, it's Washington State. Washington State. 14 U.S. states share the international boundary with Canada, a 5,525-mile border stretching across land and water. CBP figures indicate that most apprehensions and encounters have been concentrated in a handful of states, with New York accounting for nearly half of the total. Then comes Washington, Vermont, Maine, and Montana. This, by an analysis by the Center Square, shows that in the last year of the Biden administration, fiscal year 2024, marked a turning point for many northern states, with CBP data indicating the highest levels of illegal entries on record. At the height of the crisis at the northern border, reported illegal entries approaching 200,000 in both 2023 and 2024, underscoring the scale of the increase compared with prior years. Across fiscal years 2022 through 2025, CBP's latest available data shows 928 illegal border crossers reported within the 14 northern border states. Totals from west to east were as follows: Alaska, 7,380. Washington, 135,116. The only ones who are even within that orbit is New York, 363,910. What did New York and Washington both have in common? Well, back then it wasn't socialist mayors of your largest cities. No, it's that your blue state's run by fools who want illegal aliens here. So, of course, people, if you have a choice between the blue state that's going to let you do whatever you want and the red state that's not, which one are you going to choose? So, of course, they're not going to pick Idaho. They're going to come to Washington instead, which is why when our friend Jonathan Cho went up to the Peace Arch border and you saw people just walking across the Peace Arch, just coming across the thing, there were so many people doing it because they knew they could get away with it here. They would walk across Peace Arch Park and hail an Uber on the other side of the border. In addition to rising unlawful entries, the outlet reported that agents at the northern border apprehended a record number of known or suspected terrorists during the Biden administration. 1,216, or 64% of the terrorist apprehensions nationwide. So you guys had the most amount of terrorists coming through the northern border because they knew nobody was watching the northern border. We were hearing from border agents all the time that the resources were being shifted down south and that the northern border was even more wide open. How many terrorists were allowed into our country? How many terrorists were allowed into Washington State? Well, let's see. Right here, we had 2 that we brought over, meaning the U.S. government, from Afghanistan. So, how many more incidents, how many more ticking time bombs are out there? This was done by design. This was done by design. They didn't care how many terrorists came in. They didn't care how many illegal aliens came in. They didn't care how many illegal aliens got licenses. Now put the 2 together. We already had one guy who was a known terrorist who had a CDL issued by California. What happens if you have one of these terrorists who has a CDL or access to a truck and loads it with explosives? Forget explosives. Loads it with fertilizer from Home Depot. What happens then if they decide to turn it into a massive bomb on wheels? This is what the Democrats exposed every single one of us to here in Washington and in the United States, and it was done deliberately. It was done intentionally. I hope I am wrong, but I am concerned about what the next attack is going to be. If these guys decide to do something with a truck, which they now have access to, thanks to Bob Ferguson, Jay Inslee, Gavin Newsom, and all the other Democrats who just wanted to issue these CDLs and didn't care where the person was from and had no way of verifying who they were. This is crazy that they were purposely, deliberately circumventing the law. And speaking of circumventing the law, our socialist Seattle mayor-elect Katie Wilson has released her public safety plan, and it's a doozy. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I saw a report from Como News the other day, and they are quoting the Washington House Community Safety Committee, talking about working sessions this week to discuss the state's crime trends and law enforcement effectiveness. So, President and CEO of the council, Adam Gelb, said, you see this general pattern here of violent crimes, particularly assaults and gun assaults, rising during the early years of the pandemic and then falling back down now. All right, people, do you need to know why that is? Does anybody have any idea why those numbers were going up? It had nothing to do with the pandemic. What was happening during the pandemic? George Floyd riots. Defund the police. And as soon as these idiot municipalities started doing that, and firing people for not getting the COVID jab, you had a massive staffing crisis, and as a result, crime skyrocketed. It's not necessarily coming back down right now because they're doing anything different, is that they are reinstituting the dumb policies that they did during COVID. For example, when they said Seattle police couldn't pursue anybody anymore. When they said Washington police couldn't pursue anybody anymore. Oh, you think the crime's going to go up as a result of that? Shock, shock. They're saying drug offenses dropped about 25%. Well, why do you think that is? Because after that insanity with the Blake decision, where you said, yeah, legalize drugs. No problem. We're going to decriminalize everything. Go ahead, do whatever drugs you want. Now it's going back down since you fixed that? Oh, wow. Wow. There's also a 75% drop in the imprisonment rate for drug crimes. You mean because you're not arresting as many people anymore? Wow, that's really something to be proud of. There's also a significant drop in juvenile arrests and crime rates because nobody's reporting them anymore, and they're not arresting them anymore. Are you kidding me with this nonsense? Well, this is exactly the model Katie Wilson wants to follow. And by that, I don't mean a model of public safety. I mean a model of defunding the police. Seattle Mayor-elect Katie Wilson, who, let's not forget, is a police abolitionist, released her public safety plan today. Now, I'm kind of curious how this is going to shake out, because what happens is people who are running for office make a whole bunch of promises. And then when they get to office, they have to actually do the job. I compare it to Hamas. Why? Because any terrorist group goes, we want to take over this country. And then when they take over the country, they don't know how to make sure there are street lights. They don't know how to make sure there are stop signs. They don't know how to make sure there's water running or power running or anything. So Katie Wilson, who's never had a real job before in her life, gets elected, puts together a transition team. Wait, we have to actually make sure there's public safety? If we defund the police, we're going to have more problems? Okay. Let's read her vision for public safety. Seattle's next chapter begins with a commitment to a shared vision of community safety. Well, I think your vision's a little different than mine, lady, because you want to defund the police. That everyone in Seattle of every background, of every income, deserves to be safe in their homes, streets, parks, and places of business in every neighborhood across our city. Why do you have to specify people of income of various levels? Oh, because normally you demonize the billionaires and the millionaires and everybody else. We envision welcoming public spaces, thriving local businesses, and because they all left. You need new ones to replace them. And lively communities where every person is safe, supported, and valued. Achieving this vision requires a comprehensive strategy that builds trust, strengthens accountability, and modernizes our public safety system so it works for everyone who lives, works, and travels in our city. Well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's not going to work for the criminals, and they live in our city. You want it to work for the criminals? I understand public safety as a shared responsibility, requiring police, fire, emergency management, alternative responders, service providers, community leaders, businesses, and residents to work together to get results. Good. I got no problem with that, by the way. That's exactly a fine statement. And it's time to build a coordinated, modern system which reflects that shared responsibility and helps us address our most difficult challenges, including persistent neighborhood-based safety issues. Neighborhood-based. Okay. Oh, you're saying the crimes in certain neighborhoods? You want to address that? Oh, you mean by defunding the police, all of a sudden you're having problems in the low-income areas? Gun violence, not the gun's fault, behavioral health, and substance abuse. Hey, at least she's acknowledging it. At least she's acknowledging it, even in her own weird way. That's why I am retaining Seattle Police Department Chief Sean Barnes. A gajillion people just slapped themselves in the head. The truth is he's better than whatever crazier, woker person she's going to find than Chief Wiggum. The guy who thinks he had a brilliant idea to, well, I'm going to show police officers a video to show that they're appreciated. And after seeing that video, they'll feel appreciated. I'm not going to tell them, but I'm going to show them a video of me telling them they're appreciated. Or his other brilliant idea. Well, we're going to send police into areas with crime and see if that actually helps bring down crime. Who else is she holding on to? Seattle Fire Department Chief Harold Scoggins. Whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa. So the guy who coordinated with Antifa and BLM and the warlord of the autonomous zone, you think this is a guy you should keep for public safety? This is a guy who's lost respect of all the firefighters, except for the woke ones. Really? This is the nonsense you're doing? Give me a break. They are committed to lead their departments in accordance with my vision of community safety with active partnerships and directions from the mayor's office. I believe these leaders can work together, form a unified team, commit to strengthening coordination, reform, accountability, and results. Well, they haven't done it so far, so why do you think it's going to change now? Does this mean you're going to hire back all the firefighters and police officers that Scoggins and Diaz and everybody else fired? Yes? No? Maybe so? SPD Canon should not respond to every challenge alone. My administration will work with Chief Barden to fulfill the mission of CARE Department to respond to calls that do not pose a threat of violence or involve a medical emergency. Ah, the social workers. Yes. Send in the social workers. All right, guys, here we go. This is fantastic. Public safety also means protecting our immigrant communities. Oh, you mean fighting against ICE? Ensuring the safety of LGBTQ plus community members, protecting privacy and addressing concerns around surveillance technology, no more cameras, and preventing traffic violence? What's traffic violence? What does that mean, traffic violence? This is a new term. You mean somebody ramming people with cars? Is that what you refer to when somebody rams a car into a 7-Eleven to steal an ATM machine? What is traffic violence? Now I have to reach out for comment. I don't know what traffic violence is. Are we having a death race? Are we having a cannonball run? Are we talking about the Belltown Hellcat? What is traffic violence? Very curious about this. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
Nothing much. Since you brought up Katie Wilson, and since she is a person who wants to defund the police and dismantle the police here in Seattle, how many more people are going to die once she abolishes the Seattle Police Department?
Well, that's the thing. The question is she actually going to do it, or does she realize she actually needs them, or she's not going to get another term? Because if she abolishes the Seattle Police Department and crime goes through the roof, she's never going to get elected again. Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, while businesses are fleeing Seattle, the question is the economy getting better elsewhere? Even CNN is now admitting the economy is getting better. We'll give you all the details on what the Fed did today when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, now the economy has improved so much that even CNN has to admit that prices are coming down. Give a listen to this report they aired this morning.
It's a fresh 4.5-year low, 3.5-year low of $2.95 a gallon as of today. That is miles away from the all-time high set back in 2022 under former President Biden, above $5 a gallon. And it is lower, although only a little bit lower than at this point last year. Now,
so it is lower. Things are going down. Things are getting better as you ramp up energy production. That's a good thing. The problem is if you ramp up energy production too much, now you got a different problem where now it's not worth making the gas. It's not worth pulling the gas out of ground because the prices are so low you can't make a profit. So now what you got to do instead is you got to sell it to other people. You got to sell it around the world. There is something about dropping a price too low where now it's no point in making the thing anymore. So that's something you got to keep in mind. But here's something else. The Fed today cut interest rates 0.25 percentage point. Why do they do this? They're worried about the unemployment numbers. Now, the reason unemployment is going up is a few reasons. Number one, you had a whole bunch of federal workers laid off. Number two, you had a whole bunch of illegal aliens that are being deported. You put those two things together, and guess what? Your unemployment is going to go up. But the problem is not enough costs have come down for businesses yet. We know a lot of that is taxes. We know a lot of that is regulation, but also it's interest rates. When you have lower interest rates, you can borrow money for cheaper for expansion. You can borrow money for cheaper to buy a house. You can borrow money for cheaper to buy a car. And the problem is that when you have interest rates so high, businesses can't do any of that. And as a result, they aren't expanding, which means they aren't hiring new people. It means they aren't making as many houses. And because people can't afford to buy the houses, people aren't moving. And in addition to that, it means they're not selling as many cars. If they're not selling as many cars, you don't need to produce as many cars, so you don't need to hire as many people to produce the cars. So the Fed is looking at the unemployment number, even though inflation has come down, but it's still not where it should be yet. They're looking at the unemployment numbers and saying we need businesses to hire more people. Now, what some people are concerned about is about inflation going back up again. Because when you inject more money into the economy, they're worried about the dollar being worth less. Well, if you're selling American gasoline in American dollars, which is what you do with foreign governments, that's going to help the purchasing power. That's a good thing. This is all good stuff. But here's something else. If you're worried about the dollar not being worth as much because of government spending, you need to cut the government spending at the same time. The easiest way to show everybody you're doing this is the Doge cuts. Do the Doge rescissions. What are you waiting for? I understand it's Christmas, but Mike, we've had the Trump administration in power since January. It's been almost a year. Doge has been running for almost a year, and we've cut a grand total of $9 billion in rescission. Don't get me wrong. Ever since our listeners called us and said, you got to be checking these updates Doge is doing on Fridays. They're great. They're wonderful. They're fantastic. Do you realize it's barely the tip of the iceberg? Do you realize how much more is underwater of this iceberg of what we're spending on? It's insane how much spending there is. The Doge rescissions. The Doge rescissions should be done immediately. I don't know what they're waiting for. And if they're worried about bad PR, all you have to do you realize how much good PR you had at the beginning of this? The insane things we were finding that we were spending money on, like Sesame Street in Iraq, that kind of stuff. People can get behind this. Just stick with the stuff that everybody thinks is ridiculous. And people will hail you as a hero. And it'll show you're cutting government spending. Because right now, to the average person who doesn't follow any of this kind of stuff, it just seems like Republicans spend on Republican priorities, Democrats spend on Democrat priorities, and right now we're the ones getting screwed. Over on the text line, got this one. Ari, I'm a professional driver for more than 20 years. Not only should they shut down the CDL school, which do the minimal amount of training, pushing out drivers who are barely able to do the job, they should also close down the companies who hire them to cut the costs. They should be fined and never allowed in this business again. I completely agree with you. What I'm concerned about is how many of these jobbers, these independent truck drivers, are their own LLCs. So you go to shut them down, they just open a new LLC. There's only paper behind that company. I agree with you that full-on companies that are doing this should be shut down immediately. Immediately. This one from Jeff and Kent. Seattle residents. Oh, by the way, to the 206 caller, the professional truck driver, when you're in a safe place and you can actually type out something to me, feel free to send me an email and give me all the details of what you know what's going on with the CDLs that we can expose. ARI@KVI.com. That's ARI@KVI.com. Jeff and Ken says, Seattle residents, in response to Katie's safety plan, make sure your body armor is comfortable. You're going to be wearing it more often. I'm reminded of an episode of Lois and Clark where there's an alternate future where there's no Superman in Metropolis, and you see people pulling automatic weapons out of their trunks and putting on body armor. Are we getting there? Pam in Lake Stevens, traffic violence, like gun violence. Pam's trying to explain to me what traffic violence is. Wasn't really sure about that. Never heard that term before. Traffic defined as packs of cars and trucks decide to get violent and act out violently. You mean Decepticons? You mean they're Transformers where they just get all violent? You think they're a nice car and they're really not? This one from Larry in Gig Harbor. If I hear Katie Wilson say, I believe one more time, I'm going to pull my hair out. It's like she's writing a third verse to the song, I Believe. You know, the one that goes, I believe that every drop of rain that falls on a flower grows. I believe. Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, new discrimination against singers and podcasters, of all things. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Believe it or not, this 5'9" Jewish man was not the sportiest kid. Yeah, I was into sports until about 8th grade, but then everybody got bigger than me and stronger than me. And I was the tallest kid in my league in basketball till I went from being the center and the forward to being the point guard when everybody else had a growth spurt. I still played baseball, but very quickly I realized that as a pitcher and a third baseman, there were plenty of people who could throw faster and farther, and let's just say my fastball didn't have a lot on it. So my sports career was over. There comes a day where every young boy finds out he can't be a professional baseball player. Comes earlier for some, later for others. For me, it was about 8th, 9th grade. I continued playing baseball through about sophomore year of high school. But what I was really doing at the time when I realized, this wasn't going to be something I could continue to do, I went into the arts. That's right. I went into theater. I went into choir. I went into a cappella. I loved all that stuff. Plus, there was a 3-to-1 girl-guy ratio. So why wouldn't you go into these things? So I will tell you, from my experience in these worlds, Pitch Perfect, that first movie, spot on. That's what a cappella groups are like. You know what it's really like? Take the Commitments with Pitch Perfect. That's what that world is like. So there I am, a senior in choir practice. And for whatever reason, they let the incoming 8th graders who were coming to our high school show up. And we're like, oh, okay, little ones, pat, pat, tussle, tussle, as Mike would say. Oh, so nice that you're here. And the song we were doing was When You Believe from The Prince of Egypt. Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston. It's gorgeous music if you haven't listened to it before. And our music director, Miss Goldberg, decides she's going to have tryouts for the solos. So, the usual people, the ones who are kings of their castle, who have been in the choir for years, get up there and do their job, and it sounds beautiful and sounds great. Yay, fantastic. This little nothing of a girl, little tiny nothing of a girl walks up, and we're like, oh, isn't that sweet? Isn't that cute? And we were busy being seniors. Nobody can replace us when we graduate. This little girl belted out a version of this song that to my ears at that time sounded better than Whitney Houston, sounded better than Mariah Carey. All of us did that thing where you take a step back and just go, wow, that's incredible. I learned at that moment, never judge somebody by how big they are, how small they are, how whatever. Her voice filled the room. That girl was 4'7.5" if she was an inch. Tiny little nothing, belting out these tunes. It was incredible. Right away, the director goes, yeah, you get the solo. That was it. Well, now, according to Todd Starnes, a musical performance group at Kent State University has banned white people from auditioning for certain solos. Campus Reform reporter Emma Arns broke the story, reporting that the vocal intensity a cappella group limits certain solos to people of color. The university claimed that by giving a white kid a solo from, say, a song originally performed by a black artist would be considered cultural appropriation. So what about Whitney Houston performing an I Will Always Love You that was originally done by Dolly Parton? Is that cultural appropriation there? And by the way, Whitney Houston, way better job. But is that, you can't have a black artist sing something written by a white person? Mark Phillips had been a member of the group for 3 years. He was their beatboxer. He pointed out in a letter to group leaders that the ban on white people seemed to be at odds with equal opportunity, and they might be in violation of the university's anti-discrimination policy. He says, I fully respect concerns about authenticity, but I also believe that whoever gives the strongest performance should be given the chance. He's 100% right. In response, the group's executive board placed Mark on probation, demanded that he appear before a disciplinary hearing to plead his case. Okay, here we go, guys. Nobody can ever do a Neil Diamond song ever again because he's Jewish. If you're not Jewish, you can't do Neil Diamond. In fact, if you're not Jewish, you can't do Billy Joel, Barbra Streisand, none of those artists. Let's play this game. You want to play this game? Let's do it. Instead of appearing before the kangaroo court, Mark resigned. He said, my only crime was advocating for equality for everyone, regardless of their skin color. I raised a valid concern, discussed the definition of discrimination, held up a mirror to what they were doing. In their eyes, anti-white discrimination is okay, but challenging that precedent isn't, he told Campus Reform. What I really want is for people to bring common sense back and stop pretending that people of color are oppressed in this country. I want people to realize that we are meant to celebrate what we have in common instead of dividing and fighting over our differences. There you have it. There you have it. Full-on discrimination. It's not reverse racism. It's just racism. It's absolutely crazy to me that in the year 2025, this is what is still going on. This DEI insanity is meant to divide people. Oh, by the way, DEI hasn't gone away. They just changed the name of it so it doesn't show up in search engines as much anymore. It's diversity, inclusion, exclusivity, or exclusivity, inclusion, whatever it is. They turn it around so it sounds like something different. It is still there. It is not gone from college campuses. If anything, Harmeet Dillon and the Department of Justice need to crack down harder because a lot of these schools think they can continue to subvert it and have not learned their lesson. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. We got Tim Walz, who came here to visit Fergie. We found out more about that event, but also which Democrats were there and what's going on behind the scenes at the legislature. Got some scandals brewing. We'll tell you what's happening when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour is the Washington legislature banning journalists again. We'll tell you what's going on, but before we get to any of that, got some sad news today from a press release that went out. Wild Waves Theme Park in Federal Way, Washington, announced that the 2026 operating season will be its final year of operation. The park will open as planned on May 23rd, 2026, and close to the public on November 1st, 2026. Quote, "We are thankful for our guests, team members, and the community of Federal Way for supporting Wild Waves and creating so many thrills and great memories for families and friends." So they said, unfortunately, the rising cost of ongoing operations since reopening after the COVID-19 shutdown has generated millions in losses, which forces us to discontinue operations at the end of our 2026 season. Rising costs since COVID. That's since 2020. Can we go through for a second what this amusement park had to weather? So, you have huge insurance costs, ridiculously high insurance costs. And I know because I was in that industry. The same types of insurance carriers that provided insurance for my bounce house company also do it for amusement parks. And there's amusement parks that skirt the rules, and there's amusement parks that follow the rules. Let's give benefit of the doubt and say that Wild Waves follows all the rules. But there are such onerous restrictions here in Washington that it's so expensive to do business. For example, this is a story I think I've told before about the bounce house company. You know, the bounce houses that I own were inspected by the same guys who inspect amusement park rides. But the problem is, for me, they just made sure they worked. They just made sure they inflated. They didn't actually make sure they were staked down the right way or anything else. Now, I don't know how they inspect roller coasters, but I do know how they inspect those portable rides you'd see at county fairs. It's not much different than me. Oh, it's running? Good. Let that pimply-faced teenager do the maintenance work the rest of the year. No problem whatsoever. Can you give me my money now for the inspection? That's what it's about. It's about collecting those fees. I had to pay a fee on every single bounce house. The inspector would come out, look at the thing, go, yep, it inflated, I'm out of here. Even though most of the problems you have in the bounce house industry is one of these things blowing away because somebody didn't stake it to the ground. Somebody didn't put sandbags out. Somebody put a stake in wet ground because they didn't know the difference. Amusement parks, think of the liability on those. Think of the insurance on those. I still get the emails from the advocacy groups in the amusement park world. And it's crazy. They're like, this is the new regulation. This is the new regulation. And it's always in response to something somebody did that was stupid. Every single time. You wonder how there's these random laws, like you can't ride your horse down the middle of the street on a Tuesday, that kind of stuff. It's because somebody did something stupid on a horse on a Tuesday walking down the middle of the street. What other costs do they have aside from onerous regulation, insurance, which is astronomical? Well, don't forget the minimum wage is going up here in Washington. There was something fascinating in this press release where it said they have 35 full-time employees and 800 seasonal team members. So what that means is your minimum wage is going up for that pimply-faced teenager who just wants a job during the summer to make some cash to take out his girlfriend on Saturday nights during the school year. So your costs have now gone up on hiring those teenagers who are on their cell phones the whole time and don't make very good employees. But now the costs are going up for that as well. In addition to that, you don't think their water expenses, their utility costs have gone through the roof because of the Climate Commitment Act or whatever else they do over there? Add in anything else you can think of. The cost of goods is going up. And then once you get all that together, every single thing, including gasoline, which I'm sure you need for your vehicles and anything else it powers, now add in the fact that Washington State forced them to be closed for 2 years, or was it 3? 2 years for sure, but was it 3? So 2 years without operating, and I know that a lot of these COVID relief things were not designed for the entertainment industry. I know this. So now you're amazed this business has managed to survive this long. In fact, you know that a few years ago, Six Flags actually owned Wild Waves. Six Flags bought Enchanted Village / Wild Waves and was going to do something big with it. But there may have been a little issue where they didn't check and see what they could do in Federal Way beforehand, because Federal Way had such onerous restrictions they weren't allowed to build bigger roller coasters. Yes, we could have had a Six Flags here, but because of onerous regulations, we don't have a Six Flags here. I want you to think about that for a second. And now, I've got my knocks against Wild Waves. I do. I think they never really did a great job of merging Enchanted Village into Wild Waves. I think it's kind of cumbersome how those two amusement parks were kind of merged together and doesn't make for a great experience. But look at all the things they had to contend with. Maybe they never had the money to update anything because they were being hit with all these other costs here in Washington State. There's something they used to do, which I really enjoyed, which was the Christmas lights. So you know how they have Fright Fest, where you go out there for Halloween and there's all the haunted stuff and they bring in all the hay bales and pumpkins and all that. They used to do something similar for Christmas, where the water rides wouldn't be open, but all the dry rides would be open. All the regular rides would be open. And they would do Christmas lights and have Santa and serve hot chocolate. It was great. But the costs of restarting that amusement park probably weren't worth it anymore because they haven't done it since COVID. I would take the synagogue every single year. I would take the kids from the synagogue every single year. Even though it was freezing cold, we love that event. I one time hired a party bus, which was a converted Metro bus, had pizza on the party bus out to Wild Waves. Yeah, I knew how to throw an event. Let me tell you that. It was awesome. We had a great time. And now another business going away. So now 35 full-time employees, 800 seasonal employees won't have a job anymore. And for those of you who think, oh, they'll just find another buyer for the amusement park, they're not selling the amusement park. They're not selling it at all. Plans for the site are currently in preliminary stages, with goals beneficial to the city and surrounding areas. Additional details will be released as the project moves through planning and community review process. Does that sound like low-income housing? Does that sound like affordable housing? Does it sound like what Federal Way absolutely needs? More retail and buildings on top and apartments on top of it? How many of those are rented out right now? It sounds like that's what it's going to become. No more Wild Waves. So now that means Western Washington just lost something that's going to draw people during the summer season. So that means 4 months out of the year, if you want an amusement park now in this area, where are you going to have to go? Eastern Washington, all the way out to Silverwood. Mike, there's nothing closer by. You go up to Vancouver, maybe, down to Portland. Is there anything closer that's not 5 hours away, that's like 3 hours away offhand? Because
How about no?
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Also, Silverwood's in Idaho.
Idaho, right. Technically, it's in Idaho. It's right across the border. I always think of, right, it's in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Thank you, Mike. I always think of going out to Eastern Washington out there. But yeah, it's right across the border in Idaho, Coeur d'Alene. I love Silverwood Theme Park, don't get me wrong, but now we've lost another local business when you got to go all the way out there. This is a big loss for our community, and it's because of rising costs. Now, I've reached out to Wild Waves to see if we can get somebody on the show, and they said nobody's going to be available till the start of the season, probably because they want to make the announcement and then remind people they're reopening for the season so they can still make one more go of it and have a lot of people come, and they'll probably do more announcements as they get closer and more interviews, but right now they're not doing them. So here's the thing. You're going to see this story up in all the local news outlets, right? Do you think any of them are going to do an analysis like this, or do you think they're all going to do the press release? You know what I should do, Mike? I should post the press release online and see how many media outlets just copy it word for word and don't drill down about what the rising costs could be. I asked for the interview, and when they said they're not available for an interview, I said, could you please expand upon what these rising costs are? And I haven't gotten a response back yet. That doesn't mean I'm not going to. I kind of want to know what these rising costs are. And they have to thread a little needle there. Why? Because they're worried what the legislature might do to them in the meantime. Think of all these things they could be hit with in the meantime. Are any reporters going to ask that question? Really, are any reporters going to ask that question? It seems like we have so few reporters. I can name the good reporters in our area. I really can. There's so few of them. There's a few in the mainstream. We've got our friend Jeremy Harris. They're few and far between, but there are so few good reporters around here, and so few even willing to ask the questions. Well, now we found out that the Washington State Legislature is up to their old tricks again. So you have the Washington State Correspondents Association, which was supposed to be in charge of giving out press passes to reporters who want to cover the Washington State Legislature. The only problem is there's nobody who wants to cover the Washington State Legislature anymore because there's so few reporters around. Instead, we did this during the last legislative session, where they just print the press releases, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, and since so much of the lamestream media just prints whatever the Democrats send them and don't print what the Republicans send them, that's where people get their news. Which is why so many people were shocked by the largest tax hike in Washington state history. Which is why most of the mainstream media outlets didn't even cover what was leading up to it. Mike, I think we do a pretty good job of covering the legislature around here, more so than most. What do? We had on Julie Barrett once a week last year to cover all the stuff from the conservative ladies of Washington who make sure that they're following the Washington State Legislature. We had Brandy Cruz on all the time. Jonathan Cho, when he would go down there, we would have him on all the time. We had Jim Walsh. We had Travis Couture. Anytime there's somebody from the Washington State Legislature who's got a bill we think is important or fighting against a bill we think is terrible, we have them on the show. Most other media outlets don't do that. Most other media outlets don't even make the effort. You know what the most effort they made was when the Washington State Legislature offered up the Murrow grants to cover the Washington State Legislature. You think anybody who's getting a grant from them is going to cover it honestly? They're being paid by the people they're supposed to hold accountable. Why would they ever cover it honestly? You know the answer to that. The answer is they won't actually cover it honestly. There's a few people who do. We know there's our friend Jonathan Cho. Jonathan Cho has been blocked from covering so many things because he asks the real questions. In fact, we now have a montage of the amount of times Jonathan Cho's been blocked. You need a montage. Even Rocky had a montage.
Jonathan, you're not a reporter.
I'm not a reporter. Says who?
You're not actually a journalist.
Jonathan, you are not allowed in there.
I'm going to go as I don't understand why I'm not being allowed to go in.
You're not a member of the media, Jonathan.
So we talk with reporters like those in the room.
What are you guys afraid of? What are you guys afraid of? I'm just asking questions.
Do you remember last year when Jonathan Cho tried to get into the Washington State Legislature wings? But what happened was the Democrats did something very, very sneaky. So first of all, Jerry Kornfield, who runs the Washington State Standard, was now the guy in charge of issuing press passes. And it seems like Jerry didn't want any competition. I think that's really where this whole thing started. Jerry didn't want any competition at all. So he said, I'm only going to give out press passes to the people I like that I don't see as competition. And maybe the Seattle Times, if they even bother to come down here. But he didn't want other people coming down there. If you're afraid of competition, you offer a bad product. Are we afraid of competition? No. Bring it on. Right? We offer a good product. We know that. People have to pay to listen to our radio show. By that I mean people have to pay to advertise on our show. If people didn't pay to advertise on our show, we wouldn't have a show. There must be some value in this. So you look at Jonathan Cho going down there, and he's going to get a story that Jerry Kornfield won't cover because he's worried that they're going to take away his ability to give out the press passes, which means he doesn't get to cover his internal little fiefdom anymore. But what happened was, when Jerry Kornfield denied access to people like Jonathan Cho and Brandy Cruz, what happens was he was about to get hit with a massive lawsuit. You can't just do that. So he threw his hands up in the air, and he said, all right, I'm done. Democrats, you're in charge. And what did the Democrats immediately do? They restricted who can go into the wings. Now, the wings are the side rooms of the legislature, where that's normally where you talk to people. That's normally where you talk to legislatures. You get some interviews over there. You're not making a ruckus. But what they started doing was having their press conferences in the wings so you couldn't go there anymore and restricting who is allowed to go there, which is insane. Absolutely insane. The only reason they would do that is because they don't want you reporting on what they're up to. Talk about democracy dies in darkness. They literally didn't want you out there at all. When we had some members of the legislature from the Democrat side of the aisle, so few of them are willing to come back on this show a second time because we ask the real questions. Mike, who are the only ones I think have come back on a second time? Lauren Davis, her and Mari Levitt. They're, I think, the only ones. Noel Frame, the one who was behind the largest tax increase in state history. Nope, she's not coming back. What's his face? Jamie Peterson, he's not coming back. Fitzgibbons doesn't even respond to my email. None of these guys want to come on the show because they are afraid to actually be held accountable for their terrible ideas. For example, what would we ask Lori Jenkins if we had her on the show? So you passed the largest tax increase in Washington state history, and you still have a budget gap. Where'd you screw up? That's really a simple question right there, but they don't want to answer it. Jamie Peterson. So you've gone viral for your comments about saying that 13-year-olds can be in charge of themselves and don't need parents' permission to get life-altering surgeries, right? Can we talk about that? They don't want to answer the questions. They don't want to. And now I'm hearing through the grapevine that I sit in a studio, right? I do my investigative reporting via email. Occasionally, I go out when there's something convenient on a Sunday. I don't really go out in the field as much anymore. I talk to my friend Jonathan. I got a few other people that go out there, but I'm in a studio prepping the show most of the day. Rumor has it that I've been pre-banned from even going to the legislature. Mike, I go to the legislature once a year. Once a year, the Republican caucus invites me down and says, Ari, we'd love you to speak to the caucus. Great, give them a little rah-rah speech or talk about the issues that are important to you. Wonderful, fantastic, I love it. I'm honored by it every single year. I don't go down there and try and interview legislatures. I just don't. I don't have the time for it, unfortunately. But I've been pre-banned from going down there. We really are the most dangerous show on the airwaves. Why would you pre-ban us? And what's funny about this is we were talking in the bullpen just a couple of days ago. Hey, why don't we go down and do the first day of the session live from the floor, from somewhere down there? Why don't we do the last day of the session? And a couple of days we go down for big votes or when something controversial is going on. You know, it's funny because after we had that discussion, I reached out for press passes. I still haven't heard back from the people in charge of that. The Republicans got back to me and said, sure, we'd love to be involved. You want to come down? Let's talk. We'll set up interviews for you. No problem. But the people who are supposed to issue press passes, nope. Haven't heard a word. Probably because they're trying to figure out how to say, how about no? And why? Because they know we'll call them out for it. Like their idiot idea to raise taxes again. Like their idiot idea to cut more services so they can spend on dumb things like self-service stations for men that they call art galleries, laser hair removal for trans inmates, so they can spend money on stupid things like that. It's crazy. They don't want to be called out for their bad policies or how Microsoft, Amazon, all these businesses might be fleeing the state because of your tax policies. They don't want to be called out on that at all. How many press conferences have we played audio from where no reporters are asking the real questions? Nobody. Just last week, Brandy Cruz goes to confront Sean Scott, the socialist. She's the only one asking questions. It gets to the point where he goes, anybody else have a question? Anybody? Nobody? Bruce Harrell gives press conferences where he did a countdown. Any other questions? I think he got 2. 2! They don't get challenged by anybody because people like the Seattle Times are worried about losing their access because now this is what they can do. Ban you. That's what they can do because they don't like your opinion. They don't like your coverage. So when they say, oh, democracy dies in darkness and we're protecting the First Amendment, spare me your nonsense. The First Amendment includes journalists. You guys don't get to decide who's a journalist, who's not. I don't like Hannah Krieg and what's-her-face, Ashley Nerbovig, who run The Burner. But they have every right to go down there and cover it from their insane angle. The lunatics over at The Stranger have every right to go down there and cover it from their insane angle because if they're not allowed to go, I'm not allowed to go. And you know who should be defending me, Brandy, Jonathan? Those people. The Stranger. The Hannah Kriegs of the world should be saying, look, I don't like their opinions, but they should be allowed to come down here just like we're allowed to come down here. The Democrats in the Washington state legislature don't get to decide who's a journalist, who's not. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Ted in Gig Harbor. Ted, what's up, man?
Ari, I think that the wild ways thing is a symptom. It is a symptom of the fact that the adults in charge of cities and education boards and stuff, they do not care whether kids have fun or not. They do not care to let kids be kids. That is dropped off their radar screen. They want to feed them full of all kinds of stuff that isn't appropriate for adults, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I think it's even more than that. It's that for them, they don't care if the jobs are lost because they look down on something like an amusement park and say, oh, that's a blue-collar job. It's not necessary. They're not changing the world. They're just entertainment. I will remind you that the Seattle City Council blew $1 million saving a movie theater right here in downtown Seattle. Are we going to see the Washington State Legislature have a bill to save Wild Waves? No, because they don't care about it because they want it gone. Ted, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, crazier and crazier stuff happening. Toddler was abducted at a toy drive. That and other crazy crime. Plus, a professor busted after discriminating against a Christian student. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, download the KVI app and subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you never miss a minute of the show. Also, while you're there, remember to rate and share. That way your friends can see what all the fun is all about. I saw this story today that I thought was bonkers crazy. Bonkers crazy. It was written by the Oregonian, by the way. So the Oregonian is all mad that independent journalist Nick Sorter is suing the city of Portland. The Oregonian did one of the most biased articles I have ever seen in my life. Every other word is right-wing influencer, right-wing extremist, right-wing this, right-wing that. How come you never say left-wing when it comes to the Antifa people that allegedly assaulted him? And the only reason I'm saying the word allegedly is because they haven't been convicted of it yet, but it's caught on camera. He wasn't allegedly assaulted. He was assaulted. He was pushed. He was shoved. And the police arrested him. Nick Sorter is one of the independent journalists that went down to cover the insanity that was going on outside the ICE facility in Portland. Well, now he's suing the city. And now you see the Oregonian, which is their version of the Seattle Times, bashing him for even considering suing the city, trying to make it as if this is a nothing burger whatsoever. It's a frivolous lawsuit. It's really, really not. From the Post-Millennial, independent journalist Nick Sorter is suing the city of Portland after police arrested him, but not Antifa militants who allegedly attacked him outside the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement field office, which he says reflects bias within the Portland Police Bureau against conservatives. Sorter filed a tort claim notice on Thursday, signaling a planned $10 million federal civil rights lawsuit. The notice alleged that the city and police have a longstanding pattern and practice of hostility toward conservative viewpoints, intolerant sympathy, or coordination with Antifa. We know this. We know this for a fact. How much have they let go in Portland? When have they arrested anybody in Portland who's a member of Antifa? 120 consecutive nights of rioting in 2020. How many has it been now? I've lost track. We eclipse that. The only thing that stopped the insanity outside the Portland ICE facility was the weather. Let's be real about this. If the rainy season hadn't come, this would probably still be going on. Court documents we had characterized Sorter's arrest as lacking probable cause and violating the 4th and 14th Amendments and retaliating against First Amendment protected news gathering activity. It further stated the arrest decision originated with high-ranking command staff and was designed to appease left-wing activists at the scene. In the tort claim, Sorter said he was lawfully recording video and using a handheld light in low-light conditions when masked individuals threatened him, allegedly saying they would kill him or, wait for it, Charlie Kirk him. Oregonian left all that out of their report. It's all there in the lawsuit. Well, officers observed and did not intervene. The notice further alleged a masked protester using an umbrella to push him. Others swarmed him. Someone swung a fist near his head and the crowd pushed him into a drainage depression / bioswale before he escaped toward officers for safety. And then they arrested him. The notice also included a broad demand for preservation of evidence, asking the city to institute litigation hold and preserve electronically stored information and related materials dating from January 1st, 2017 to the present, long before the 120 consecutive nights of Antifa and BLM riots that rocked the Rose City in 2020. Do you know why they're going back to 2017 would be my guess? Because that's when Antifa was really getting big, and they want to know why. Remember, BLM and Antifa, after everything that was happening in Ferguson in 2016. So that's when all this was really ramping up. He's going after everything. If the city's smart, they'll settle. Then they don't have to turn over everything. Me personally, I hope they fight this because then Nick Sorter gets everything. Now, I've reached out to Nick. He's kind of busy this week. We're going to try and have him on the show next week, but I think that could be a lot of fun. Sorter's attorney, D. Angus Lee, we haven't spoken to him in a while. I reached out to him, too. He said he might be available next week also. Said the lawsuit will seek punitive damages for alleged Fourth Amendment violations framed as a Monell claim. It argues the city maintains an unspoken policy of targeting conservatives. Lee also told the outlet that some officers are pressured by the bias of the Bureau's leadership and suggested depositions would shed light on internal practices. Portland police officials have reportedly denied political discrimination After Sorda's arrest, Harmeet K. Dillon, head of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, said she would pursue her own inquiry. Lee submitted a memorandum to Dillon in November outlining alleged examples of viewpoint discrimination. Antifa militants have targeted the Portland ICE facility since June and the first No Kings protests, with unrest escalating after President Trump announced on September 27th he would deploy the National Guard. That's when they started bringing even more people down to this craziness. I tell you, my friends, I am so thankful that Donald Trump won the election and not Kamala Harris. Can you imagine what would be going on right now? Antifa would be running wild in multiple cities, not just places like Portland, Seattle. It's crazy, absolutely crazy, that the Portland Police Department, rather than protecting somebody like Nick Sorter, said, nah, forget it. We're going to protect Antifa instead and arrest this independent journalist. I'm looking forward to having him on the show because I really want to hear everything that happened from his perspective. We'll tell you when that's going to be as soon as we know. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Luckily here, we got a new police contract for the Seattle Police Department. Mike Solon, president of Seattle Police Officers Guild, is going to tell us about that, plus weigh in on soon-to-be Katie Wilson as mayor of Seattle and what that means for the police. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, it looks like we might be about to have a new contract for our Seattle police officers right in time for our Seattle Mayor-elect Katie Wilson, the socialist who's an anti-police, defund the police, abolish the police activist, to kind of be bound by a contract. Joining us now to discuss, President of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, Mike Solon. How you doing, buddy?
Great, Ari. How are you, man?
Good. So let's explain the process to everybody. You do your negotiation. It goes to the city council. The city council votes on it. Then the mayor, in theory, signs it. So as I understand it, yesterday there was a vote. The city council's going ahead with it, and that means it's going to Bruce Harrell's desk before Katie Wilson gets into office, in theory. Is that correct?
Yeah, in theory, that's the way it's done. And, the council basically makes it law, and then to really put the rubber stamp on it, it is the mayor's signature. But it's my understanding, and I could be wrong on this slight percentage that I am, that the mayor doesn't necessarily need to sign it. It's already law after 30 days. So for us, I mean, this is a 3-year battle of negotiations. And then, I credit Mayor Harrell's team actually to pivot at the table, seeing how the primary results were playing out for them. And they wanted to get a deal done. And we were able to be successful to get this deal done. And then obviously credit those 6 council members who voted yes to make this official.
Okay, so which ones voted no?
Well, the one I'm focused on is Rob Saka, and that's what really bothers me in terms of if you look at his dais narrative yesterday. I believe it's at the 1 hour, 11-minute mark for your listeners to Google if they want.
Oh, we'll pull it. We'll put it up on socials now that you gave me the timestamp, so they don't have to go to that much work. Yes.
Yeah. So, Councilmember Saka was railing that, hey, I voted no because we don't have subpoena power. And understand what the subpoena power component is that it's embedded in legislation from a 2017 that then city council ordinance, which is literally called the accountability ordinance. Mm-hmm. And they enacted that without bargaining it with us, SPOG, because it had major working condition issues. And since that time, we have been bargaining aspects of that accountability ordinance at the table, which is one of the main reasons as to why we're out of contract for longer periods than we are in contract, just to give you some context. So this subpoena power concept, which was Saka's use of justifying why he voted no, is what is the most troublesome component, or one of the most troublesome components of that accountability ordinance if you want to be a police officer in the city of Seattle. And basically what it says, and you can listen to Rob Saka's word himself, they basically want to take your personal records as a police officer to enhance an investigation in an administrative policy alleged violation, not just the cop's personal records. Oh, it could be your family. Oh, it could be your friends. So just imagine how that strikes so opposite to what our United States Constitution, the Fourth Amendment, calls for, unreasonable search and seizure. Can you imagine agreeing to something like that? I don't.
Yeah, that's insane. Why would you agree to something like that? Because then you have their personal lives. Why would you want to do that? And hey, the legislatures are the ones who are always doing things on their personal accounts, so that way you can't get a hold of those through public disclosure request. So why should they not be subject to something like that?
Well, here you go, Ari. You just set the table, and this is my next point. You're sitting down, I hope.
Oh, sure. I'll sit down for this one. Yeah, what's up?
So credit Rob Saka for calling me on Sunday evening to give me a heads up that he was a no vote for the upcoming Tuesday vote. And I thanked him for calling me and to give me a heads up. And I asked him, why are you doing it? Then he went down his diatribe, much like he dribbled in the narrative at the dais. Mm-hmm. But at the end of this 15 to 20-minute conversation, Rob Saka tells me, hey, I've called you from my personal phone. Don't send council business in a text on this phone. Call me if you just want to meet and we can meet.
Oh.
I hung up the phone. I hung up the phone, and it was one of those conversations. You have a conversation, you're like, I wish I would have said this.
Yeah.
Right? After you analyze it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. And so, to me, based upon his comments on the dais yesterday, I was pushing for this subpoena power of officers' personal records. He's doing the exact same thing he claims cops are doing in order to get true accountability. He's skirting the PDR law.
So this is a guy who wants the accountability but wants to skirt the accountability. Insane. Absolutely insane. Okay, so you've got problems with the Socialist, which was no surprise, Alexis Mercedes Rink. You've got Rob Saka, but now you've got Katie Wilson coming in. What are you hearing from your officers regarding Katie Wilson? Do they want to stay? Do they want to go? Does this contract change anything?
Well, this contract helps them stay because we got 2 years of being in current contract, which is awesome. I'm so happy for the community and the cops that we're under a current contract thanks to the council yesterday's vote, the brave souls that voted yes for it, given amongst the unreasonable activists' loud, incessant narrative against it. Cops are happy, but there is some trepidation with a socialist mayor taking over. But as I've couched in the position I'm in, I have to be open and ready to work with whomever occupies the office. And so far, they haven't done anything to us, at least that I've heard about, that impacts SPOG in a negative way. There's always a lot of history and things of the past stances, such as what you just brought up. But so far, I have to remain kind of open to make sure we get off the ground right in a proper footing with the new administration. Now, having said that, we're prepared for anything. Mm-hmm. And if it gets negative, then we'll respond in kind. But right now, it's status quo.
In the last few minutes, we have with Mike Solon, president of Seattle Police Officers Guild, where the police look like they're getting their next contract, which is great after a very long wait. There are rumors going around about people shutting down SPD overtime. Are they getting confused between the contract, or is that something that's actually happening?
Well, overtime is not a right in terms of a bargaining labor perspective. The reason why there's so much overtime, though, is because we've lost 700 cops in 10 years, the overwhelming majority of that being post-2020. So there's no cops out there. Mm-hmm. The only way that this agency is surviving in the manner that it is, as meager as it is because of the overtime. Cops are tired because they're having to work the overtime just to make ends meet in terms of adhering to the city's public safety wishes and calls for service. Otherwise, if they weren't working overtime, this community wouldn't be in real dire straits, as we already are. So at the end of the year, there's always this crunch on the overtime, the budget in general. And typically it's always the expenditure of money just based upon having people at work, and you got to pay them for it. So outside of their normal hours. So that's why there's this focus. It's always this way at the end of the year's budget cycle. Once January 1st comes with the 26 budget, which has already been approved, it's copacetic until the money does run out. It's my understanding that the money is in a deficit as we currently speak until the first of the year. So there's this crunch on don't expend any more money.
Gotcha.
And, I can hear that. It's reasonable. But understand, we need cops to work overtime, or else public safety needs are not going to be met because you won't have any cops.
Right. And we already know how that turned out when they tried defunding the police. Mike Solon from the Seattle Police Officers Guild, great job getting this for your officers. Great job at the negotiating table. I'm so happy for you guys. God bless you. God bless all your brave men and women in uniform.
Good man, Ari. Thank you.
Appreciate the time. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Stories about teachers behaving badly really bothers me because I used to work with kids so often. And I understand there are kids you don't like, but you have to work harder with those kids because otherwise they know it and it sticks with them for a lifetime. You don't want to be that teacher that kids think of the way you think of that teacher you hated. You don't want to be that the rest of your life. You want to be that teacher who they said, this teacher changed my life. I am sure if I opened up the phone lines right now and the text line and said, give me the name of the teacher that changed your life and why, you'd have amazing stories. You'd have incredible, incredible stories. But then there's the other teachers, the ones who made your life a living hell. Some of them, you were probably convinced enjoyed it. There was one, Mrs. Weiss. Oh, my God. I still think of how awful that woman was, but that's a whole nother story. A University of Oklahoma professor is now facing disciplinary action in relation to a 0 grade given to a Christian student in a recent essay. Last week, the school confirmed that teaching assistant William Mel Kurth, who uses she, they pronouns. Okay, this is just stupid at this point. She, they? Are you confused? Are you bipolar? Are you multiple personality disorder? According to Fox News, have been removed from the classroom after flunking a student, Samantha Fulnicki, on an essay wherein Fulnicki invoked her Christian beliefs and the Bible. Now an assistant teaching professor is accused of viewpoint discrimination stemming from a protest organized to advocate for Kurth's return to the classroom. The University of Oklahoma released a statement on social media Friday evening confirming that a professor who it did not identify offered excused absences to students who wished to join a protest in favor of Kurth's reinstatement. Turning Point's chapter, Caleb Magana, reportedly asked for an excused absence to participate in a counter-protest at the same event, according to the group's social media, which identified the professor as Kelly Alvarez. In a later interview with a student newspaper, the OU Daily, Magana reportedly identified Alvarez as his English Composition 2 instructor. Republican State Senator Shane David Jett also said that Alvarez was responsible for the alleged discrimination. But Alvarez denied Magana's request unless a documented group of counter-protesters could be organized. Quote, Caleb should not be marked absent for showing up to a counter-protest while those in favor are excused. That is discriminatory. Personally, I don't think any of them should have been excused. I don't think the ones advocating for the idiot teacher should have been excused. I don't think the Turning Point kids should have been excused. But if you're going to let one set of them be excused, you got to let the other set be excused as well. The professor expected Caleb to organize an entire counter-protest with people confirming they would be attending instead of allowing them to show up on their own just like everybody else. His freedom of speech, his ability to receive an excused absence were made dependent on others agreeing to participate in his counter-protest and share his beliefs. This is incredibly anti-free speech and discriminatory toward an opposing viewpoint. The school responded by saying, on Wednesday, a lecturer allegedly demonstrated viewpoint discrimination by excusing students who attended to miss a class to attend a protest on campus, but not extending the same benefit to students who intend to miss class to express a counter-viewpoint. A school director immediately responded to the situation and told students in class today and by email that the lecturer's actions were inappropriate and wrong, and that the university classroom exists to teach students how to think, not what to think. The director further stated that any student, regardless of viewpoint, would be excused if absent from class today to attend the protest without penalty, and that the lecturer had been replaced, effective immediately, for the remainder of the semester. By the way, not the right move by the school. You know what the school should have said? All you get your lazy butts back to class. You have class today. If you want to protest, schedule it for a time when you don't have class. The professor was also placed on administrative leave pending a further investigation. I think the only reason they're on leave is they're doing what a lot of these school districts and colleges do. Wait for the heat to die down and then reinstate the radical. How many times do we see this happen with Seattle Public Schools and other districts around here? How many times do we see this happen with University of Washington? Oh, wait, nobody at University of Washington was ever suspended. Speaking of the insanity in public schools around here, somebody sent me a picture from the Mercer Island High School library of a book that is clearly biased. It's called Human Rights, and it's got all the things you would imagine on the cover, all the LGBTQ gender stuff on the cover. But there's a picture of a guy who I think is supposed to be an Israeli soldier, this big, massive bulk of a man, clearly you've never met a Jew before, who's oppressing some little Palestinian kid. It's a cartoon book. I can't tell what I'm more mad about, the violent depiction of the IDF, the insane false depiction of the IDF, or the fact that you think a cartoon book is appropriate for high school students? So is it this librarian is injecting their opinion into the school, or is it they're incompetent because they put this one out on the featured display? The book intentionally distorts and demonizes Israel. God knows what else they got wrong. There's only a picture of the cover and this little thing in there. But Mercer Island High School didn't have enough problems with the sex pests that are in the school, the sex offenders, the alleged sex offenders they're having in the school. They didn't have enough issues when kids spray painted Islander Middle School with swastikas and killed the Jews. Now you got to put this in the classroom too. But also, do you think the kids are this dumb? Or has reading levels gotten so low they can only understand a cartoon book in Mercer Island High School? Insane. Absolutely insane. When we come back, my friends, Erika Kirk is pushing back on the conspiracy theories about her husband's death. We have this awesome audio for you when we come back and show you what she's so mad about. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Jim Walsh tells us what the Republicans are going to do to stop the Democrats' taxes, and more Somali fraud is exposed. But before we get to any of that, yesterday, Erika Kirk went on Fox and Friends in the morning. She's doing a media tour to talk about Charlie Kirk's new book, Stop in the Name of God, about turning off your life on Sabbath so you can focus on your family. It's a very Jewish idea, but by that nature, it's a very Christian idea because the Christian Sabbath is based on the Jewish Sabbath. It's based on the same book. It's based on the same ideals. So there was one clip that I really, really liked from this interview. Let me play this one for you. This is the clip I played yesterday on the show. No, it's not a repeat episode. I'm playing the clip again for a very specific reason.
It's those little things where, again, he would walk through the door, drop his bags, Daddy's home, take his phone Friday night, Shabbat Shalom, throw it in the junk drawer, and it was just all us. And that's what I always wanted to make so special for him, was coming home. I'd always say, baby, I don't care what time you get home. Home is here for you. Your food will never be cold. It might sit out for a little bit, but I'll reheat it. It's fine. And I just want to encourage spouses, don't get mad. It's so easy. Don't do it.
Now, we knew this book was coming out long before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. On Sundays, when I have the time, I have my Keeping the Faith extra bonus content on Sundays where I do interviews about religion and politics. And I was actually talking to Turning Point USA people about having Charlie Kirk on my show to talk about the book when it came out before he was assassinated, because I thought that would be an interesting perspective. The first and only time I interviewed Charlie Kirk was, spent a lot of the time, we've played that interview before, we spent a lot of time talking about religious observance. As a young radio host, I think I was just a few months into the job at that point, I didn't know you let your guests do the talking and you respond to that, not try and drag your guest over to what you want them to say, and you'll get a better interview. I listen to that interview now going, wow, I should have just let him talk about the religious stuff. It would have been so much more interesting than the political stuff. He kept trying to bring it back to religion. I kept trying to drag it back to politics. Would have been a way better interview if I just let him go. Mike tells me all the time, just let him cook. Let him cook. Would have been a way better interview. Live and learn, I guess. So what happens is I was hoping to have Charlie Kirk back on the show to talk about the book. And unfortunately, that's never going to happen now. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. The book was released 3 months after he was killed. And it's really, really sad. I hope when we go to Turning Point USA, I get to talk to Erika Kirk about the book. I get to talk to Erika Kirk about her husband. Young Zach and I are going to be going there, thanks to our friends over at Conservative Move. We're going to be going down there for America Fest, which is coming up next weekend, as a matter of fact. It's going to be huge. It's going to be massive. It's going to be insane. J.D. Vance is going. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I'm very curious to see what Turning Point is like without Charlie Kirk there. So Erika Kirk does this interview, and she's clearly still heartbroken about her husband, which it's only been 3 months, guys. Can you believe it? It seems like it was a lifetime ago. It's only been 3 months. But I really like that clip because she's talking about what the family time meant to her. She's talking about what the Sabbath meant to Charlie, what the Sabbath meant to her. So I took that clip and I posted it on social media. Went viral for all the wrong reasons. I put it up there because you're mentioning two of my favorite things: family time and the Sabbath. The trolls were out in force. The last time I looked at it, it had over 8,000 likes and over 1,500 comments on it. And the comments are overwhelmingly negative. I don't mean like 50%. I mean like 99%. Every conspiracy theory you can imagine. Every anti-Semitic insanity you can imagine. Every single hateful thing, accusing her of making all this up, accusing her of so many things that are just wrong. The woman lost her husband. Those kids lost their father. But the trolls are out in force. The trolls were out in force. And the one message that I saw more than anything else is Charlie Kirk would never say anything like that. This is all made up. Really? Charlie Kirk would never say anything like that. Really? I've heard him discuss the Sabbath multiple times, as a matter of fact.
To be honest, like, we did not even know what happened until it announced. Now, I had my phone off because of Shabbat, but now that I'm looking back at text, I was getting a little
Everything really big happens on Shabbat, like the Trump assassination.
Trump getting shot. No,
the other Trump assassination.
No, exactly. Yeah. Don't get me started. So it's like, and so I was getting some, I like three hours ahead of time, I was starting to get some like, hey, game on, but I didn't know because my phone was off and I have no regrets.
I believe in that clip he was talking about the bombing of Iran. I think that's what he was talking about. And I feel the same way whenever my phone's off. And people said, hey, he was still posting on Friday nights. Okay, guys, I'm pretty sure Ben Shapiro is also still posting all the time because he's not running his social media account. Somebody else is. I personally don't post on the Sabbath anymore. In fact, Matt Gilbert does this new thing. Fan of the show. Matt Gilbert does this thing. Oh, Ari's back online when he sees me posting on Saturday night. I remember for a little while I had auto posts going, but then I had people reach out and go, Ari, I thought you kept the Sabbath. Why is your phone posting? I'm sure that Charlie Kirk stuff was still auto posting because he was very, very serious about this. It wasn't he said it one time. He said this kind of stuff all the time.
Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. Turn off your phone. Enjoy your family. God bless America. See you guys Sunday night in Albuquerque.
The dumbest comments I saw were people claiming, this proves it. The Jews killed Charlie Kirk. See, a Christian would never say anything like that. Guys, Sabbath is the English translation of Shabbos, of Shabbat. We all know this, right? We know that the King James Bible is based on the original Hebrew edition of this. And people are losing it, absolutely losing it, but are they really people? I picked a few accounts at random and started, thanks to Elon Musk, checking where these accounts come from. Yeah, some are real people, and some are foreign bots. In fact, a lot are foreign bots. A lot of the ones saying, this proves it. This proves it. You know, a lot of them are probably the same bots that are supporting people like Candace Owens. Candace Owens has completely lost the plot, jumped the shark. I am proud to say I hated Candace Owens before a lot of other people did. Candace Owens, I thought her clips were fun when she would go on Fox News and talk about race. Then I read her book, Blackout. It was one of the worst written books I've ever read in my life, clearly pushed out in advance of her taking on a new show. I think maybe she was launching the Daily Wire show or something. I figured, okay, well, maybe not everybody's a writer and she's better in person. I watched her Daily Wire show. It was terrible. It was awful. And I realized she doesn't have anything to talk about. She doesn't have anything to add to the conversation. When you used to watch her sit around with Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles and all the other Daily Wire guys, she didn't really contribute that much. There wasn't much to contribute because she has no unique perspective, unless it's a conspiracy theory. Let's see. What has Candace Owens said about Charlie Kirk's assassination? That Tyler Robinson wasn't the real killer, that the feds did it, that the Trump administration did it, that Turning Point USA did it, that the leadership, that the insiders insinuating that Erika Kirk did it, that the Jews did it, that the Israeli government did it, that Israeli intelligence did it, that the pro-Israel lobby did it. She has claimed billionaire Bill Ackman, the U.S. military, the Egyptian military, all with no proof whatsoever. All with no proof. She has made allegations that the Department of Treasury was investigating Turning Point USA. The Department of Treasury had to issue a statement saying that is not true at all. We are not investigating Turning Point USA. Not at all. Anytime Candace Owens is called out for this by anybody, immediately she changes it to something else. Immediately. Turning Point USA has invited Candace Owens to come to their studios in Phoenix to prove any of her allegations. And magically, she's busy that day. Magically, she's busy that day. Which should come as a surprise to nobody because she's completely full of it. Completely full of it. I see a lot of people that I disagree with on social media who are on our side of the aisle, calling her out for this. Like, lady, you have crossed a line here. You claim you were friends with Charlie Kirk, and this is how you honor his legacy? You have lost your mind, absolutely lost your mind. You're doing it for the clicks. We all know you're doing it for the clicks. But her diehard followers, nothing is changing their mind at all. Nothing at all. Erika Kirk today was on with Harris Faulkner on Fox News. And she finally had enough of all of this. This clip is a little long, but she tears into all people making these conspiracy theories, and it sounds like who she's talking about is really Candace Owens.
From the perspective of a grieving widow, a mom, and a battle-tested American. Good to see you again today. Talk to me about this part of the conspiracies that are out there, this disturbing part that people are trying to guess where Charlie is.
Can I have one thing? Can I have one thing? Can my children have one thing? Everything was public. We will be building the most beautiful memorial for my husband at Turning Point USA, and it will be for the world to see, and it will be spectacular, and it will have basically museum style for our Charlie, for my Charlie. But can I have one thing? Can my babies have one thing where we hold it sacred, where my husband is laid to rest, where I don't have to be worried about some secular revolutionary coming and destroying my husband's grave while my daughter is sitting there praying? One thing. This is my husband. Yes, he was Charlie Kirk to the world, and I know so many people love my husband, and I am grateful for that. But this is my husband, and I want to be able to have one thing left that is sacred to our family, to my in-laws, to my babies, and to my parents. One thing.
What are they taking from you right now?
Nothing. But I will tell you what they are doing. It reminds me so much of chapter 6 in the book of Nehemiah. He is building a wall, and the townspeople are at the base of that hill saying, Nehemiah, calling him all these names, saying all these things, come on down. Every single time he had the same message 4 times in a row. I cannot come down. I am busy building. That is how I feel. I do not have time to address the noise. My silence does not mean that I am complacent. My silence does not mean that somehow Turning Point USA and all of the hand-picked staff that loved my husband and my husband loved them is somehow in on it. We are busy building. And you know what I thought? I thought these people are human. We are all grieving in our own way. And they are trying to find the answer to something that happened that was so evil. They are trying so hard. And I get that. We're doing the same. Anytime we hear a lead or anytime we hear anything, we send it to the authorities. Please dig into this. No rock will be unturned. I want justice for my husband, for myself, for my family, more than anyone else out there. So for me, you want to keep telling me to come down while we're building? I don't have time for that. But here's my breaking point on that. Come after me, call me names, I don't care. Call me what you want, go down that rabbit hole. Whatever. But when you go after my family, my Turning Point USA family, my Charlie Kirk Show family, when you go after the people that I love, and you're making hundreds and thousands of dollars every single episode going after the people that I love because somehow they're in on this, no.
You know, I have to say it. I've never seen you like this.
No, this is righteous anger because this is not okay. It's not healthy. This is a mind virus. Yes, I believe in our judicial system. I do. We have a hell of a team working on this. Excuse my French. But this is not okay.
So you want to put these people back in the box where they've been creeping from?
I don't care what box you're in. But just know that your words are very powerful, and we are human. My team are not machines, and they're not robots. They are human. We have more death threats on our team and our side than I have ever seen. I have kidnapping threats. You name it, we have it. And my poor team is exhausted, and every time they bring this back up, what are we supposed to do, relive that trauma all over again? They watched my husband get murdered. I have no idea how I would have reacted if I was there that day. And thank the good Lord that I did not have to see that happen. But my team, they are rocked to the core. So why every single day do they have to be dragged through the mud, analyzed, hyper-analyzed?
She's right. You know the difference between Erika Kirk and Candace Owens? There's a lot of differences. One is truly righteous in what she's talking about. The other one is evil, demonic, I would say. Erika Kirk has to go everywhere with security guards. The people from Turning Point USA have to go everywhere with security guards. Candace Owens doesn't. Candace Owens lies and says, oh, there's people who are out to kill her. No, there aren't. But now there are Candace Owens fans who are going after the Kirk family. Now there are Candace Owens fans who are going after the Turning Point people, convinced they killed Charlie Kirk. That's the proof right there. Candace Owens doesn't need security, but Erika Kirk does. Erika Kirk and her children do after her husband was murdered. And Candace Owens gets clicks from every single episode because of the conspiracy theories she spews. I don't have clips go viral that often. I'm not that big on social media. I like to think I am, but I'm not. I can see the appeal of getting monetized on social media and having a clip go viral for whatever crazy thing that you say. And then people, these bots, just satisfy the bots. Just feed the beast. Satisfy the bots. And then say whatever thing the bots want you to say, and you'll have an audience. I would rather be talking to one person, Mike, on this microphone, than know that it's an audience of bots programmed to say the most horrific things in the world. It is crazy to me that people believe what she says. Erika Kirk, good on her for fighting back, but you think she needs to deal with this? In the Jewish tradition, we believe you sit Shiva for a week. It's a week of basically your friends coming to visit you after somebody dies. And then there's a 30-day mourning period where you're not supposed to shave and you're not supposed to do certain activities. And then there's a year. It's actually technically 11 months. 11 months of certain prayers that you say and other things to do that you show you're in mourning. She's 3 months in. 3 months in. She had to take on her husband's organization. She has to watch 2 kids by herself. She has to raise 2 kids by herself. The last thing she needs is people like Candace Owens spewing this garbage all the time. And for Erika Kirk to say she was giving Candace Owens the benefit of the doubt. Maybe everybody grieves in their own way. This is the woman, Erika Kirk, who stood on stage and said she forgave the person who shot her husband. For her to be giving that benefit of the doubt, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that at all. I couldn't forgive anybody in a situation like that. But for Candace Owens to continue spewing this stuff when she's been called out on it, the only reason she's doing it is to make money. The only reason she's doing it is to make money from bots who aren't even real people. Question, how many people on social media are doing things just for the bots, just to make the money, rather than having actual, factual opinions? It's despicable. Really, really is. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues, including the Somalian fraud scandal has grown. I don't think it's $1 billion. I think it's a lot more than that. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. The joke was that Tim Walz was coming to town because he needs to coordinate his defense with Bob Ferguson. Well, the scheme, the scam, the fraud that we're finding out about that happened in his state under his watch, that he looked the other way on or was so oblivious, didn't know what was happening, when $1 billion disappears? How do you not know $1 billion is disappearing? We said the same thing about Jay Inslee with the Nigerian scammers who ripped off over $1 billion of unemployment funds during COVID. We were asking the exact same question. Well, now it looks like this may be way worse than anybody ever thought. According to Fox News, in the wake of a years-long $250 million welfare fraud scheme, Minnesota taxpayers will now finance a pricey state-level cleanup effort, effectively paying for the failure twice after state officials missed repeated warning signs. The Feeding Our Future scheme exploited a federally funded children's nutrition program administered by the Minnesota Department of Education during the COVID-19 pandemic, siphoning money meant to provide meals to low-income kids. It now stands as the nation's largest COVID-19 fraud case. Oh, that's not true. The $1 billion out of our unemployment fund should have been the biggest case. Come on, don't take a record away from us. We're number one. We're number one. An audit from the Minnesota's Office of Legislative Auditor sheds light on how the scheme went unchecked for so long, finding that the MDE's oversight was inadequate and its failures created opportunities for fraud. The deception was so egregious that flawed applications sailed through, complaints were never investigated, and the nonprofit kept expanding despite repeated red flags. That's on the government. That's on the Minneapolis mayor. That's on Tim Walz. That's on all of them. What followed was a taxpayer-funded spending spree. Luxury vehicles, overseas cash transfers, real estate transactions that prosecutors say may never be fully recovered. A large share of the $250 million stolen may be gone for good, a loss Minnesotans will ultimately bear. MDE Commissioner Willie Jett has placed the blame squarely on those accused and convicted in the scheme. Quote, what happened with Feeding Our Future was a travesty, a coordinated, brazen abuse of nutrition programs that exist to ensure access to healthy meals for low-income children. The responsibility for this flagrant fraud lies with the indicted and convicted fraudsters. But in the wake of the audit exposing the sweeping fraud schemes, Jett outlined a slate of internal reforms. He said the MDE had deployed a broad set of anti-fraud tools, an expansion of oversight that will almost certainly come with additional costs for taxpayers. The agency has since created the Office of Inspector General, adding a Counsel General's office, trained staff on updated fraud reporting policies, and hired a firm to conduct a financial review of certain sponsors, among other steps. Those new offices and the scaled-up compliance infrastructure will require ongoing funding to cover salaries, training, and day-to-day operations. Jett did not specify the cost of these anti-fraud measures, and the state has not yet released a price estimate. It is unclear how much of the cost of the overhaul taxpayers will ultimately shoulder. Meanwhile, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz signed an executive order in January 2025 that centralized the state's fraud investigations under the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, a move slated to cost taxpayers $54 million from 2026 to 2029. So now they have to pay $54 million to clean up the $250 million. The proposal would give state agencies stronger investigative powers, expand oversight tools, and increase criminal penalties for fraud. The reforms proposed by Walz and the internal changes underway at the MDA amount to one of the largest anti-fraud overhauls the state has ever attempted. But without a price estimate, it remains unclear how much taxpayers will ultimately pay to rebuild the oversight system that allowed the fraud to spread. And what is clear is the fallout isn't over. For Minnesotans, the scandal's price may only be beginning. Now, where is this $1 billion number coming from? This is just one program we just talked about, which was $250 million. There were plenty of other programs going on that were also defrauding it. That's where you get the $1 billion. But now we know it's over $1 billion because you got to spend at least $54 million are auditing one organization, just one. And there were many others that were involved in this mess. Some stats. The Center for Immigration Studies, low immigration, pro-immigrant, it says. Somali immigrants in Minnesota, profile of a struggling group. The migration of Somalis in Minnesota has created a stark socioeconomic disparity in a region once known for its egalitarianism. This report documents the struggles of the Minnesota Somali population, now numbering over 75,000, in an otherwise high-achieving state. Among the findings, more than half, 52% of children in the Somali immigrant homes in Minnesota live in poverty, while only 8% of children in native-headed homes are in poverty. 1 in 8 children in poverty in Minnesota lives in a Somali immigrant home. About 39% of working-age Somalis have no high school diploma, compared to just 5% of natives. Among working-age adult Somalis who have lived in the U.S. for more than 10 years, half still cannot speak English very well. About 54% of Somali-headed households in Minnesota receive food stamps, and 73% of Somali households have at least one member on Medicaid. The comparable figures for native households are about 7% and 18%. Nearly every Somali household with children, 89%, receives some form of welfare. Although Somalis have recently been implicated in welfare fraud, any population with poverty rates as high as theirs will qualify for extensive means-tested aid. The best way to reduce immigrant consumption of welfare is not simply to crack down on fraud, but to reduce the number of new arrivals who have low earning power. Do you know that when people used to come through Ellis Island, and I've said this before, they had to prove they could be gainfully employed, that they had a job waiting for them, that they had money in their pocket, that they could learn to speak the language. Otherwise, they weren't getting through Ellis Island. Whenever people say, well, Ari, how'd your relatives get here? They're not Native Americans. Yeah, they came here and they worked hard for it. They didn't get any welfare whatsoever. Aside from some Jewish organizations, very few existed at the time to even help anybody. That's what they got. They didn't get welfare. But this is now the problem. We bring in so many people from the third world who are reliant on the government. And the Democrats are counting on this. They're counting on it because if you're reliant on the government, you're always going to vote for the thing you're reliant on to get more money. And that's exactly what happened here. Why do you think the politicians looked the other way? Because they wanted this group to continue voting for them. Whether they knew about the fraud or didn't know about the fraud, people like Tim Walz are responsible. At the end of the day, the buck stops with you. Actually, it probably stops with the terrorist group Al-Shabaab. But you were responsible for this. You ignored the warning signs. Congress, by the way, everybody's responsible for passing something they didn't read with no guardrails, leaving it open for fraud. And why? COVID. That was the excuse for everything. We're going to pass this because COVID. Why did Jay Inslee take the guardrails? Have Susie Levine take the guardrails off our unemployment fund? COVID. COVID. Because of the flu. And you get things like this. We don't know how deep this rabbit hole goes. We don't know how deep this fraud is. But I guarantee you this. There are some Democrats who probably still don't even know it's happening. I think it's all a witch hunt by the Trump administration to go after Tim Walz. I guarantee you there's still people who think that, who don't know how deep this thing is. And that's what they're going to keep saying. But then I ask you this question, my friends. Is it happening here in Seattle as well? Is it happening in King County? Because we have a massive Somali population, and the majority of this was with the Somali population. You forget that the kids whose parents claim they had autism were on the take from this. They were getting kickbacks as one of these other frauds. Is the same thing happening here? Is anybody investigating it? More of that as it develops. When we come back, are taxes about to hit us to pay for more wasteless Democrat spending? Jim Walsh, chair of the GOP, has an idea to stop some of this insanity dead in its tracks. We'll tell you what it is when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, it's my favorite time of year. No, I don't mean Hanukkah. No, I don't mean Christmas. No, I don't mean New Year's. It's pre-filing bill time in the Washington State Legislature, which means we get to see all the insanity that the left is dredging up. And holy cow, they're going to come back with their greatest hits. Do you have any money? I think they're simplifying the tax form, which is just going to say, how much money did you make this year? Send it on in. That's what they're working on. However, there are some bills on our side of the aisle. They're actually very, very promising. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, Representative Jim Walsh, who's also the chairman for the Washington State GOP. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, you're right, Ari. It's just like Christmas or Hanukkah for policy wonks. This is when we see all the best and worst ideas bubbling up to the surface in Olympia.
Yeah, and you get warnings on what they're really going to try and do, like income tax and such. But you have a bill here that looks like it's trying to repeal the taxes that the Democrats put in place that they didn't realize were going to affect schools and nonprofits, even though we told them it's going to affect schools and nonprofits. Do you think that maybe some of these teachers' unions are now freaking out about what's being taken from them by the very people they put into office?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We talked about this literally on the floor of the House, and we talked about it with you and with other people when this was happening. So this was the last session. One of the tax hikes that the progressive left put through the legislature and the current governor, Mr. Ferguson, signed as fast as he could was an expansion of the state sales tax on services, certain services.
Mm-hmm.
These had traditionally not been taxed by the state with a sales tax. I mean, they pay business taxes and other sorts of things. This is a new state sales tax on services. So a big piece of it is IT services, so like tech support services that you might outsource with a company that does that. Now you're paying a sales tax on those deals. And the bill was really badly written. It appeared to me to be a rush job. They didn't really think it through. The language was overbroad, and we said all this. And the progressive tax and spenders pushed it through the ledge anyway, and Ferguson signed it. So one of the things that it did that I think it was, I don't know if it meant to or not meant to, is it applied this sales tax to purchases made by school districts, by public schools, and a group of non-profit organizations like food banks, for example. And these are operations, whether it's a nonprofit like a food bank or a public school, that operate on very tight margins. They don't have a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're having to pay this new tax. And with the schools, it's especially silly because they get most of their operating money from the state anyway. I mean, some of it they get with local levies, but they get the biggest chunk of it from the state. And now they've got to basically send some of it back to the state in the form of the sales tax. And the teachers are angry about it, understandably. The administrators are angry about it, understandably. The school board members are angry about it. So a lot of people have talked, but nobody was doing anything. So I filed a bill that just doesn't fix the whole messed up sales tax, but it exempts schools and food banks and other nonprofits from the new sales tax.
So
That's what the bill does.
I got a question. Why don't we just go to the school boards and go to the school districts and go to the nonprofits and say, hey, guys, us on the GOP, we're fighting for you guys. Let's repeal the whole thing. Or do you think that doesn't have a shot with the Democrats at all?
Well, there may be others that do that. In fact, I think there are probably going to end up being maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 different attempts to fix this screwed up thing. And I'm sure somebody will make a broader repeal of the whole sales tax. And that might work too. The other thing that might happen is it may be one of the progressive left people wants to be the hero, and they may steal my bill and put their name on it and run it. But all of that's okay, Ari. I don't care if they steal my bill. I don't care if they do a broader repealer. That would be great. We just need to fix the problem. And this is one of these situations where I don't really care who gets credit or who gets to put their name on it and go shake the hand of the governor when he signs it. But I think someone will fix it. This bill that I did is just it's like the simplest fix. There are bigger and more broad fixes we could do, but this is the simplest one. And I kind of challenge my colleagues at the legislature. Somebody else do better. I welcome it. But let's get this problem fixed, because making schools pay a sales tax when they outsource some services is just silly.
And if somebody steals your bill, you get to steal a line from David Spade back on Saturday Night Live when he said, "Oh, that band Stone Temple Pilots, I liked it better when it was called Nirvana." And you could say, you guys literally stole my bill. I'm glad that you are agreeing with GOP policies on being anti-tax. In the last few minutes we have with Representative Jim Walsh. So something I've noticed about the legislature is that for the past few years, because the Democrats have a supermajority, the GOP has been mainly on defense. How do you go on offense going into this session?
Well, a big part of it, Ari, is the initiative process. Mm-hmm. We've got a couple of initiatives that are out there right now getting signatures, and none of them are across. They don't have enough yet. They're still gathering, and there's time. There's weeks left up to the end of the calendar year to get the initiative signed. If we can get those couple of initiatives qualified with enough signatures, that definitely takes control of the kind of agenda in Olympia. All three of them are initiatives to the legislature, so they go to the legislature first, and if the legislature doesn't act, then they go to the people for a vote on next November's ballot. But I'm hoping they all get across the line. They're close. They're not there yet, but they're getting there. And, of course, the three are, one, that restores the Parents' Bill of Rights, the parts of it that got gutted. The second one clarifies in state law that boys can't play in girls' sports. And then the third one is the voter ID initiative that requires proof of citizenship when you register to vote in Washington. Not when you vote, but when you register to vote. Yeah. So those are the three initiatives that are out there. And if we get one or two or all three of them, I think that's a way that we who are more common sense focused can grab some part of the agenda that's going on in Olympia. But a lot of it, Ari, is going to be trying to fix all this screwed up budgets and taxes. And the governor has just done such a poor job of negotiating the operating budget. The two other budgets are actually in decent shape, but the operating budget's a mess. And that's going to need to be fixed and renegotiated. So a big chunk of the session is going to be on the budget and the taxes that support it. But if we can get these initiatives qualified, and there's still time, so if you haven't signed a petition yet, you can still do it. We can take control at least of part of the agenda.
Chairman of the Washington State GOP, Representative Jim Walsh, thank you so much for fighting so hard on behalf of all of us, and thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
It's always good to talk to you, Ari. There's a lot going on. It's going to be a fun couple of months.
Oh, fun is not the word I would use, but yes, it will be something to watch.
I have a strange sense of fun, Ari. I have a strange sense of fun.
I'll use the word entertaining because it'll make for great radio and great coverage of great news stories. Representative Walsh, thank you so much. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And we start with local good news, my friends. Yesterday, the U.S. Navy Blue Angels announced that, yes, they will be coming back to the Boeing Seafair Air Show for 2027. We knew they were coming for 2026, but now we know they're extending that till 2027 as well. The Blue Angels previously confirmed their return to Seattle for 2026, securing back-to-back appearances at one of the country's most celebrated waterfront air shows. The announcement was made at the International Council of Air Shows convention in Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, so I got 2 years for sure where I could try and get a ride on one of those suckers. Every year I never get the ride. I put in for it, I'm not getting the ride. If anybody has any connections to the Blue Angels and says, hey, I know this crazy radio host, he promises not to throw up in the back of your airplane. Can you guys get me on board one of those things? Come on, please. It's a bucket list item for me. That would be so much fun. It would be so awesome. That's something I've always wanted to do ever since I moved here and realized what the Blue Angels were. Really just a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Mike found this story over here. This comes from The Independent, the UK. Self-driving Waymo taxis have recently gone viral for really bad reasons. But, including the death of a beloved San Francisco cat, a legal U-turn in front of police who could not issue a ticket. This week, however, the autonomous vehicles are the bearer of happier news after a San Francisco woman gave birth inside a Waymo. Was it like a little one of those robots like in Star Wars Episode 3? Zuba, Zuba, or whatever dumb thing the thing says. The mother was on her way to the University of California, San Francisco Medical Center on Monday when she delivered inside the robo-taxi. A Waymo spokesperson confirmed on Wednesday the company stated its rider support team detected unusual activity inside the vehicle and called to check on the rider as well as alert 911. Hang on. Mike, I got different questions here. What does that mean they detected unusual activity? Person laying down in the back? Presence of another human being? What kind of sensors do they have in the back of this car? I'm now a little concerned. Waymo, which is owned by Google's parent company Alphabet, declined to elaborate on how the vehicle knew something was amiss. They're spying on us. Is that what it is? Video camera noticed something funny was going on there? I seriously wonder about this. If there's some kind of detector where it senses another presence, like you try to squeeze somebody else into the car or something, I wonder if who knows? Who even knows? I mean, I could get into the graphic details of what it may have detected also, but yeah, not good.
Well, I think it's the old drive-in movie theater detector. It'd be like, you trying to shove 5 kids in the trunk there? No, I'm only paying for one rider. Yeah.
Yeah, me and my wife, Morgan Fairchild. What about this? What if there's like a vomit detector meant for people puking or doing anything else in the back of the Waymo and it picked up something? I don't want to get too graphic with this. But
Ari Hoffman, I don't want to get too graphic, but vomit comet.
Vomit comet, yes. Picks up whatever in the back. The taxi and its passengers arrived safely at the hospital. Head of Emergency Services, Jess Bethold, a UCSF spokesperson, confirmed the mother and child were brought to the hospital. She said the mother was not available for interviews. Waymo said the vehicle was taken out of service for cleaning. Aha! Okay, now we know what's going on. While still rare, this was not the first baby delivered in one of its taxis, the company said. Said, we're proud to be a trusted ride for moments big and small, serving riders from just seconds old to many years young. The driverless taxis have surged in popularity, even as they court higher scrutiny. Riders could take them on motorways and interstates around San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, and Phoenix. They're operating here, right? Or are they on their way here? I've seen them around. I don't know if they're actually operating, though. I've seen them testing the suckers before. I've been behind them. You know what's really annoying? They don't go around obstructions. They just kind of sit there and wait. I've seen that happen. I know they're testing them. I don't know if they're actually operational and orderable here yet. Haven't seen it. Meanwhile, here's another story. James Vanderbeek, that's right, Dawson himself, raised $47,000 to help him in his battle against cancer by selling his memorabilia. I didn't realize there were that many Dawson's Creek fans who still want that stuff years later. I mean, I know the Jurassic Park poster in his room is cool. Yes, I watched an episode or two of that show. He was diagnosed with stage 3 colorectal cancer last year, raised more than $47,000 to defray his medical costs. He partnered with Prop Store to sell 7 items from 2 of the actor's memorable roles, the TV drama Dawson's Creek and the 1990 film Varsity Blues. A necklace that Dawson gifted to Joey on Dawson's Creek was the most expensive item, selling for $26,628, including a buyer's premium. I didn't see that episode. I don't know what it's about, but I assume it's like the Picard flute for the Dawson's Creek people, where they go, this must mean a lot for the show. Good on him for doing that. I wish him only health and success in the future. Well, that's going to do it for us today, my friends, but fear not. We will be back tomorrow with more insane stories and more exciting guests. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.